To Diep, hello, everyone. In the quiet hours of the night, CEO James carries the weight of a crumbling world on his shoulders, choosing silence over confession so that Diep and little Nee won't bear his pain. Behind his composed smile lies the wreckage of bankruptcy, truth heavy enough to break even the strongest hearts. But secrets cannot stay hidden forever. When Diep learns the devastating reality, she faces her own crossroads. Will she turn away from the man she loves to escape the storm, or stay by his side and walk through the darkness with him, even if it means suffering together? The sky was still pale with dawn when James parked his car by the quiet roadside. He rested his forehead on the steering wheel, his hands trembling slightly. The world outside seemed to be moving on. But for James, time felt like it had stopped the moment his father froze every account under his name. Overnight, the life he had built was gone, his position in the family corporation stripped away, his access to resources severed. It wasn't just about losing money or power. It was about the humiliation, the unspoken warning that he was on his own. James could have called his mother, begged her to intercede with his father. He could have told Diep, who would surely meet him with tears and comfort. But as he stared at the sunrise breaking through the mist, he made a quiet vow they would not carry his burdens. Diep had already known enough hardship, and little Nee deserved a childhood untainted by adult struggles. So he straightened his shoulders, wiped the exhaustion from his face, and prepared the mask of composure he would wear for them. That afternoon, his mother called anyway. Her voice was soft, almost breaking, as she confessed she still had 5 billion VND saved, enough to give him a chance to rebuild. James hesitated, torn between pride and desperation. Finally, he accepted only 3 billion, urging her to keep the rest for herself. "I will fix this on my own," he said quietly, though deep inside he felt the crushing weight of uncertainty. Even his younger brother Hung stepped in, transferring 500 million without a word. The gesture tightened something in James's chest, gratitude, guilt, and determination all at once. Still, he told himself he would repay every bit. Tonight, no one would see him falter. Meanwhile, Diep was at the market, her hands stained with earth from the morning's harvest. Beside her, Nee sat obediently on a small stool, clutching a cup of milk. Diep's laughter was warm and gentle as she greeted customers, but her mind was elsewhere. She remembered the way James's eyes had seemed distant the last time they met. He had smiled, yet there had been a heaviness about him, something he wasn't saying. Diep wasn't naive. Rumors traveled fast in small towns and among business circles. She had overheard whispers that James had been forced out of his father's company, that his accounts were frozen. When she thought of James carrying all of that alone, her chest ached. She knew him well enough to understand why he stayed silent. He was protecting her and Nee. But the thought raised a terrifying question: would their love withstand the storms ahead? Would she stay beside him and suffer the hardships, or would she be forced to walk away for Nee's sake? As evening settled, James drove past the nearly completed farmhouse they had dreamed of sharing. Its wooden beams glowed gold in the fading light. He imagined Diep and Nee standing on that porch, waiting for him. The thought both comforted and haunted him. He would not let them see his fear. He would endure the sleepless nights, the desperate deals, the loneliness that clawed at him. For Diep and Nee, he would be strong even if it meant breaking in silence. Somewhere deep inside, though, he couldn't silence the small, aching fear. What if the woman he loved discovered the truth and decided she could no longer stay? The following morning, James woke before dawn, the city still asleep under a blanket of fog. He drove aimlessly for a while, the hum of the engine his only company. The silence gave him space to think, though every thought was a storm: deals he might close, debts looming like shadows, and the memory of Diep's gentle smile. He needed a plan, a lifeline, to rebuild everything from ashes without dragging her into the wreckage. By mid-morning, he was sitting in a quiet corner of the familiar cafe where he and his old friend Trang had once shared dreams of success. When Trang arrived, his face brightened with surprise. "James," he said, clasping his hand firmly, "after everything I've heard, I didn't expect you'd come back." James forced a small smile. I'm not finished yet. His voice was steady, but his chest tightened. They talked for hours. Trang's textile company had grown far beyond what James remembered. Orders flooded in from domestic buyers and long-term partners in Korea and Japan. But the factory was too small, the machines aging, the workers exhausted from endless overtime. Trang needed capital to expand. You know, I offered you 20% last year for the same $3 billion, Trang said cautiously. The company's worth much more now. $3 billion gets you only 5% today. James studied the table between them, his mind racing. He could walk away, save what little money he had left. But the opportunity was too strong to ignore. 5% isn't enough. He said finally, I'll take 7. In return, I'll bring you new clients from the US, help restructure your production lines, and manage part of the operations myself. You know my experience. Trang hesitated, then nodded slowly. 7%, then, let's build something great. As they shook hands, James felt the first flicker of hope in weeks. It wasn't security. Not yet, but it was a step toward redemption. Meanwhile, in the small-town market, Diep packed up the last of her unsold vegetables. Her fingers were numb from the cold, but her thoughts were restless. Nee skipped beside her, humming a simple tune. Will Uncle James come tonight? The little girl asked, her big eyes full of expectation. Diep forced a smile. Maybe, sweetheart. He's busy these days. But she couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her heart. The whispers she'd overheard about James's downfall echoed in her mind. She loved him, truly loved him. But she also carried the responsibility of Nee's future. Could she bear to watch him struggle? To watch their dream house remain only a dream? Could she stand by him while the world judged and doubted him? That evening, James stopped by the nearly finished farmhouse again, its wooden frame gleaming faintly in the dusk. He stood there quietly, imagining Diep's laughter filling these walls, Nee chasing fireflies in the yard. He wanted that future so badly it hurt. He drove away before knocking on the door, deciding instead to work late into the night on contracts and plans. Diep deserved to see him strong, not worn and desperate. Still, as he merged back onto the highway, the silence pressed in around him, whispering the question he feared the most. If Diep knew the truth, would she stay and suffer beside him or walk away to protect herself and the child she loved? The next few days slid by like shadows on water. Diep went about her routine with careful steadiness, but her mind was anything but calm. Each morning she tied her hair back, packed a small basket with fresh vegetables from her garden, and led me by the hand to the market. She greeted customers with her usual soft warmth, but when her eyes drifted away, there was a flicker of worry she couldn't hide. Nee, innocent and lively, sensed something was different. Mommy Diep, she whispered one afternoon, her small fingers brushing Diep's sleeve. Why doesn't Uncle James visit as much? Did we make him sad? Diep knelt, tucking a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. No, sweetheart, she said gently, though her throat tightened. Uncle James is just very busy. Sometimes grown-ups have to fix big things before they can come home. She kissed Nee's forehead, but when she stood, her eyes glistened under the fading sunlight. That evening, after selling the last of the vegetables, Diep stopped by the small farmhouse under construction. The frame was strong now, almost ready for walls and windows. She ran her hand over the wooden beams, imagining the laughter, the dinners, the soft nights this place was meant to hold. For a brief moment, her heart swelled with determination. This dream would not crumble so easily. She thought back to the whispers she'd overheard about James's accounts frozen, his father's disapproval, the humiliation of being cut off. Diep knew him too well to doubt his strength, but she also knew the weight he carried. He would rather shatter in silence than let her see him break. That night, James finally appeared. It was nearly 8, and Nee was already in her pajamas, drawing clumsy stars on a scrap of paper. When the front door opened, her face lit up. Uncle James, she cried, running into his arms. James lifted her easily, hiding the tremor in his hands as he hugged her tight. Did you behave for Mommy Diep today? He teased, his voice soft and warm. Diep watched them quietly, her chest tightening at the tenderness of the scene. James looked exhausted beneath the faint smile he wore, the dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. She waited until Nee scampered off to show him her drawing before speaking. "James," she said, her voice low but steady, "you've been distant, and I know something's wrong." He turned toward her, that practiced composure flickering for a second. "It's just work," he replied, almost too quickly. Diep stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "You don't have to lie to me. I know about your father. I know you've lost the company." The air seemed to still. James opened his mouth, then closed it again. The mask slipped, just enough for her to see the weight he'd been carrying. "I didn't want you or need to worry," he whispered. "Finally, I can handle this. You don't need to suffer because of me." Diep's hands trembled as she reached for his. "James, suffering doesn't scare me. Losing you does." For the first time in days, James let himself breathe. He hadn't expected her quiet strength, the unwavering way she stood beside him even as the world threatened to collapse. In her eyes, he saw something unshakable, not pity, but love. And in that moment, beneath the dim light of their modest home, James realized that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he thought. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. James's journey shows that even the strongest among us can be brought to our knees by hardship. He was a CEO, confident and capable. Yet when everything collapsed, his company, his financial security, even his father's trust, he chose to endure the pain in silence. He thought that by carrying the burden alone, he was protecting Diep and little Nee. But what he discovered was something far more powerful. Love and trust are strongest when they are shared. Diep's quiet strength is a reminder that true commitment does not waver when life grows difficult. She could have turned away when she learned about James's bankruptcy. Instead, she chose compassion over convenience, loyalty over fear. Her decision teaches us that love is not about enjoying the sunshine only when the skies are clear. It is about standing together through the storms, even when the future feels uncertain. Nee's innocent hope reminds us to hold on to joy, even in the midst of challenges. The way her eyes lit up at James's rival, even when he was worn and broken, shows that simple acts of love, a hug, a smile, a shared moment, can heal wounds that money and status cannot. From their story, we learn that strength is not always about facing the world alone. It is about allowing others to walk beside us, to share in our struggles and our dreams. Trust, loyalty, and love are not signs of weakness. They are the very things that make us resilient. In life, we will all face seasons of loss or uncertainty. But if we open our hearts and let others in, those seasons can become the soil from which new hope grows. The lesson is clear. Do not let pride or fear isolate you. Lean on the people who love you and offer them your unwavering support in return. Together, even the heaviest burdens become lighter, and even broken dreams can be rebuilt. Another truth this story reveals is that success is not defined solely by wealth or status. James believed that his value lay in his ability to provide, to appear strong and unshakable. When that image crumbled, he feared losing Diep and Nee. Yet, it was in his most vulnerable moment when he could offer nothing but honesty and determination that their bond grew even stronger. This teaches us that genuine relationships are not built on what we can give materially, but on trust, respect, and shared dreams. Diep's response to adversity demonstrates courage in its quietest form. She did not demand easy answers or guarantees. Instead, she chose to face uncertainty with James, proving that love is as much a decision as it is an emotion. Real commitment means walking into the unknown hand in hand, even when the path ahead is unclear. The story also reminds us of the power of hope and resilience. Nee's simple joy and unshaken belief in James symbolize the light we must keep alive. Even in dark times, hope does not erase difficulty, but it gives us the strength to endure and to believe that better days are possible. In life, we may be tempted to hide our struggles or push people away to protect them, but sometimes, letting others see our scars is the most courageous thing we can do. Vulnerability invites connection. Connection builds strength, and strength shared among those who love us can turn even the most painful seasons into opportunities for growth. Ultimately, James and Diep's story teaches us that love is not about perfection or ease. It is about presence, being there for one another, even when everything else falls apart. It is about choosing to stay, to fight, and to believe together. When we remember this, we discover that even the harshest storms cannot destroy what is built on trust, compassion, and unwavering love.